Assalamualaikum and greetings everyone. Today we will be presenting the research proposal of our group, which is an empirical analysis of the relationship between monetary expansion and life expectancy. So before we get started, these are the team members of the Golden.
Hello, my name Hazim Shah 104328. Today I will talk about whether printing more money can help people live longer. Printing more money can help the economy grow. It can also give the government more money to improve hospitals, clean water and public health service. However, too much money can cause inflation, which means price go up. When the price increase, daily costs like foods, housing, and healthcare become more expensive. This can make it difficult for poorer families to afford basic needs. So, overall, printing more money can either help or harm health, depending on the situation. Life expectancy. In this study, Y represents life expectancy, which is the independent variable. Life expectancy means the average number of years a person is expected to live. Globally, life expectancy has increased from about 46.8 years in 1990 to 63.4 years in 2023. However, this progress is not equal in all countries. Rich countries usually have higher life expectancy than poorer countries. Events like COVID-19 also reduce life expectancy for a short time. Life expectancy is influenced by factors such as income, education, and healthcare spending. Money supply. The independent variable X1 is money supply. Money supply refers to the total amount of money in the company. There are different types such as M1, which includes cash, and M2 and M3, which includes savings and deposit. Money supply is important for economic growth, inflation, and stability. In Malaysia, money supply has increased a lot from 1996 to 2025 due to higher income and digital payments. It also changed during major crises like 1997, 2008, and COVID-19. The government controls money supply to support growth and manage inflation. GDP. GDP means the total value of goods and services produced in a country. It is an important indicator of economic health. GDP includes consumption, investment, government spending, and net exports. In Malaysia, GDP increased from about 100 billion US dollars in 1996 to over 400 billion in 2025. This shows strong economic growth and development. The economy also changed from agriculture and commodities to industry and service. However, Malaysia faced several crises such as the 1997 ASEAN financial crisis, the 2008 global crisis, and COVID-19 in 2020, which affect growth. Recently, growth has been stable between 3.5% and 5.2%, supported by domestic demand and export. Healthcare expenditure. Healthcare expenditure means total spending on health service. It includes treatment, prevention, and health facilities. It also an indicator of how strong a country's health system is. In Malaysia, healthcare spending increased from about 3% of GDP in 1990 to 4.6% in 2023, reaching around 84 billion ringgit. Malaysia has a dual healthcare system which includes public and private sector. In 2023, the public sector contribute about 52.7%, while the private sector contribute 47.3%. Problem statement. Monetary expansion helps support economic growth and stability. It can increase job, income, and healthcare spending, which may improve people's health. However, too much expansion can cause inflation and increase the cost of living. When prices rise, it becomes harder for people to afford healthcare. Although Malaysia's life expectancy have improved, there are still challenges such as aging, rising costs, and inequality. Therefore, it is important to balance economic growth and public health. Discussion on relevant issue. Life expectancy in Malaysia has gone up over time, but we still don't know clearly how monetary expansion affects health. Most studies look at income, education, and healthcare, not money supply. Monetary expansion can help by creating growth, jobs, and spending, but it can also bring inflation which lowers people purchasing power. Past crises in 1997, 2008, and 2020 show that the economy and well-being are linked. So more research is needed to understand how money policies affect health in Malaysia.
The next part is the objective. The first one is to analyze the impact of inflation, the price trap as a mediating factors that affect healthcare affordability and longevity. The second one is to determine the statistical correlation between the growth of M2 money supply and average life expectancy in Malaysia. The third one is to look over on how sudden shift in monetary stability or economic crash impact public healthcare outcome in Malaysia. The next one is research question. The first one is how was the expansion of money supply in Malaysia can be influenced the nation life expectancy from 1996 until 2025. The second one is how do periods of economic volatility correlate with changes in life expectancy due to the increased stress and poverty in Malaysia. The last one is to what extent does inflation can cause a rapid monetary expansion to create a price trap to the Malaysian which can reduce access to medicine and nutrition to the Malaysian. Significance and scope of the study to examine on how the government and Malaysian changed their mindset on their financial and healthcare. The second one is to focus on Malaysia cover 30 years from 1996 to 2025.
Hello everyone, my name is Kaizatul Likma with the number matrix of 104667. So now I will be presenting the second chapter, which is the literature review. So this chapter reviews the previous studies on factors affecting life expectancy. The study focuses on three variables, which is the healthcare expenditure, economic growth, money supply, using literature from 1996 to 2025. So in this study, life expenditure is the dependent variable. The independent variables are the healthcare expenditure, economic growth, and money supply. So all these three variables are expected to positively influence life expectancy. Life expectancy refers to the average number of years a person is expected to live. Healthcare expenditure is spending on healthcare services and facilities. Economic growth is measured by GDP, while money supply refers to the amount of money available in the economy. Studies in developed countries generally show positive results. Chan found that higher healthcare spending can improve healthcare quality. Kim and Len found that healthcare expenditure increases life expectancy. He and Lee concluded that GDP has a positive long-term effect on health. So overall, stronger economies and higher healthcare spending can contribute to longer life expectancy. On the other hand, findings in developing countries are more mixed. Sari and colleagues found that healthcare spending must be distributed effectively to improve health outcomes. Wong and Kwe found that economic growth improves living standards and health. Other studies show that a stable money supply helps government finance healthcare services, although poverty can sometimes reduce these positive effects. The literature shows that health and economic factors are closely related. However, higher GDP or healthcare spending alone does not guarantee better health outcomes, especially in developing countries. There are also mixed findings in previous studies, and many use outdated data. Therefore, This study examines healthcare expenditure, economic growth, and money supply together using updated data from 1996 to 2025. Based on the literature review, three hypotheses are proposed. The first hypothesis is that healthcare expenditure has a positive relationship with life expectancy. The second hypothesis, economic growth has a positive relationship with life expectancy. And the last hypothesis is that money supply has a positive relationship with life expectancy. Thank you.
My name is Daniela binti Daya, number metric 103775. I'm going to present chapter 3 methodology. First one is the data descriptive. We use the secondary data methods to collect our data. For the quantitative data, we use small bank indicator to collect data for variables, and for qualitative data, we use Google Scholar for the articles. Next, the data collection and sample size. Time observation is 30 years, which is from 1996 to 2025, where there is an economic crisis and post-pandemic issue happened during this period. The sample size is Malaysia. The dependent variable for this study is life expectancy LE, and the independent variables is money supply MS, gross domestic product GDP, and health expenditure HCE. For the theoretical framework, we use two theories, which is the Grossman model and the Preston-Cook model. The Grossman model stated that health is derived demand, which means that people demand more on health to stay healthy. This model also mentioned that health is a capital stock, where people invest more to have a healthy life. Next, the Preston-Cook stated about the country's wealth and health, where rich countries will live longer because they have more access to expensive treatment. The non-linear curve represents that countries have more money and resources to stay healthy and can afford the health treatment.
My name is Siti Ainurina Shahza binti Muhammad Zabidi, matrix number 106346. The next part is empirical model of the study. Based on the study objective, a linear econometric model was formed as follows: LE equal to beta 0 plus beta 1 MS plus beta 2 GDP plus beta 3 HCE plus error term, where LE is life expectancy, MS money supply, GDP gross domestic product, HCE healthcare expenditure, and the last one is error term. Next part is hypothesis. There are three hypotheses were formulated based on the research questions as well as the objective stated in chapter 1 to investigate the relationship between monetary expansion and life expectancy in Malaysia. For objective 1, H0, increased inflation does not have a significant negative impact on average life expectancy in Malaysia. H alternative, increased inflation has a significant negative impact on average life expectancy in Malaysia. For objective 2, H0, there is no significant long run or short run relationship between the growth of money supply and average life expectancy in Malaysia. H alternative, there is significant long run or short-run relationship between the growth of money supply and life expectancy in Malaysia. And for the last one, objective 3, H0, macroeconomic crisis and monetary instability dummy variables have no significant negative impact on life expectancy indicators in Malaysia. H alternative, macroeconomic crisis and monetary instability dummy variables have a significant negative impact on life expectancy indicators in Malaysia. The last one is methods to be used. The first method is multiple regression analysis. The fundamental model will be calculated by OLS regression. To identify the best fit line linking the independent and dependent variables, this technique minimizes the sum of squared residuals. The next one is diagnostic test. The first diagnostic test that we use is normality test Jark-Berra. The Jark-Berra approach is a way to determine whether the normality assumption is reasonable. The test starts with assuming normality and rejects the hypothesis if the statistic is too large. Second is model specification test, Ramsey reset test. Ramsey's regression specification error test or Ramsey's reset test is commonly used to detect functional form misspecification in regression models. The third one is autocorrelation test Darwin-Watson. Because this study uses time series data from Malaysia, the error terms for subsequent years may be connected. The Darwin-Watson statistic will always have a value between 0 and 4. The last one is heteroscedasticity test. This test is carried out to guarantee that the variance of the error term is homoscedastic. If heteroscedasticity exists, the standard error will be biased, rendering the hypothesis test unreliable. And the last method that we use is Granger causality test. A Granger causality test will be used to assess whether the past value of the money supply can accurately predict the present value of life expectancy or if the relationship is bidirectional.
And with that being said, that will be all from us. Thank you.